De magyar nyelven nem
Video boš v naročje našega velikega dana.
No velikih informacij nimate!
Говорит радио Старуха. Доброношли Radio Starucha speaks. Welcome everyone. Welcome to the place where there is no time at all. There are no hands on the clock. We are here with you without time, without space, without a clock. Let it be pleasure. Enjoy. Dear listeners, you are on the frequency of 107.5 megahertz, the frequency of Starucha, Radio Starucha, where time does not exist. You turned into my waves, surrender yourself to me, resonate with me. Listeners, dear nomads of beauty, you are not here by coincidence. You've been caught in my waves after a well-defined set of events. As you can see, I used crow to lure you to the empty passage bar. His thoroughly implemented despair sucked you, and you followed him willingly into the flat in a block. In the apartment on the 12th floor, I had previously did my work on a few men of the Crow's crew. Now they are all exhausted and in despair. Nothing bad was done to them, I assure you. They were protected by their protective names, names that still protect them from the dangers of the mission. They immersed into the very core of the origin of their protective names, into the sad moments of their youth when they were faced with the fact that they have to take care of themselves. But they did not know exactly how to protect themselves. Don't be scared. You also have a protective name. You may not know how to pronounce it yet, but it is firmly anchored within you. It works through you, but you don't notice it, just as you don't notice with which hand you write, or the socks you throw away every night in the dark corner of your bedroom. Dear listeners, dear nomads of beauty, I admit I also distill the thoughts of member of the crew, Grappa. Remember, she took you to a party with 100 of people, 200 sheep, and a shepherd who ended up smoked, sacrificed to the smoking passion of the oldest member of the nomad crew. But let us leave the tragedy of the shepherd. I chose Kel's Heap as a suitable father figure, who stretched his mind to trick yours, to expand it, to knot it. Through Kel's Heap I implanted Mr. HARMS himself and his thoughts on time, space, and existence. After this treatment, you were finally softened enough to be able to surrender to the river. A large white vortex pulled you into the psychedelic comfort of a plastic cocoon. There, I was finally able to trigger a creative gesture, and alone with it, a fantastic process of your potential transformation. Oh, and now you are here, in my lap. Think about it. You are tied to me with only one sense. You can only hear me. In this way, your essence and your soul is gently transformed into something else. Yes, my dear listeners, follow my instructions and your transformation will be complete. Enjoy the frequencies of Radio Starucha on 107.5 megahertz. So now, take a piece of paper and pencil, or newsprint. You can also use flour and water, wool and crochet, or pieces of excessive plastic that accumulates in your garbage. Whatever you have at hand. For you, I have prepared overpriced game in making caterpillars. While listening to Radio Starucha, each one of you will make your own caterpillar. If nowhere else, then in your head. You can send a photo of caterpillar to people@tnk.c. The listener who will make the most likable caterpillar gets a raw sardine, a glass of vodka, and a personal thank you letter from our esteemed Sakerdon Mihajlovič. You know what they say. Without a caterpillar, there is no cocoon. Without a cocoon, there is no butterfly. And without a butterfly, there is no real meadow. I will broadcast you some thoughts that Dr. Salvatore was thinking today while visiting the store where he bought a pound of black bread, a can of anchovies, tobacco and vodka.
Bruchi, sì, bruchi avidi.
Caterpillars, yes, greedy caterpillars. It's fascinating how much they resemble us, humans. They eat, do damage until they all fall papate.
Quando un comodo bozzolo si disseta e esplode.
When a comfortable silk cocoon bursts, a butterfly emerges from it, a creature completely different from a caterpillar. Transformation, metamorphosis. Out of nowhere, cells appear in the cocoon, magical imaginary cells, as they are called.
Queste cellule immaginarie
These imaginary cells in a cocoon with an unstoppable will begin to develop a new creature out of the caterpillar, and when they complete the transformation, the silk sheet of the butterfly papae bursts and a butterfly emerges from it. The butterfly's genome after the charm of imagination is completely different from the caterpillar's genome. Amazing. So one goes into the butterfly papae and a completely different creature comes out of it.
Spero di non aver dimenticato.
Hope I didn't forget to turn off the electric oven at home. Did I or didn't? I have to go home right away. I deeply apologize.
Thank you, Dr. Salvatore. Very instructive. So that you don't wander in the dark, I will give you a hint for solving today's incident 3. Trust. Take a pencil and write on the nearest wall. In ancient times, the word psyche has been used for both butterfly and soul. I repeat, in ancient times, the word psyche was used for butterfly and soul at the same time. Dear listeners, today's program of Radio Starucha will be thematically colored. We will delight you with a bunch of stories for your inner child. I filtrated the stories of the nomads of Beauty Crew and adjusted their frequencies so that they can reach it. But before that, a little light music. And don't forget, make caterpillars. You know how they say, without fear, there is no work. Without work, there is no cocoon. Without cocoon, there is no butterfly. Without butterfly, there is nothing at all. And here there is the first story for your inner child. All of today's stories are, as I mentioned before, stories about the protective names of the nomads of Beauty Crew. Kelship will give us the story of the crow.
Our little Miha became entangled in a terrible trap. He forgot what passion and sweetness are. He stared at the world in the board.
Dear listeners,
He murmured,
it is
"It's like
difficult
a
to
curse."
understand.
With his
We know.
father,
but keep trying.
He lived in the apartment in the awfully large dull grey house. There were a lot of apartments and a lot of families in this giant house. Such an awfully huge house is called a block. Micha's life is boring, which means that time the drugs and
Dear
drugs
listeners,
and drugs
be
and
attentful.
nothing really
The
happens.
usage of
When the
alcohol
clouds of
can
Sar
be
is
harmful
lumped like
for
a
producing
butterfly
and
pupa in front
understanding
of
the
TV,
context.
and he started in that box in front of him. From under the NBA baskets on Capodistria he climbed on Mostovi, Hidak, show and jump straight from the bridges into the arms of ORF cartoons.
So,
He and
basically,
his brother were
the story
home
is
alone, and
about
when
Micha's
they were
childhood.
alone, Micha
You
was
follow?
especially
Yes?
careful not to be too loud. Even if he just closed off the drawer aloud, his brother yelled at him, because older brothers have such force and such power that they can behave very badly towards the younger ones. Horror. Our little Micha waited and waited and awaited. Mom and Dad are back. It's the same again.
Dear
5
listeners,
times boring.
you are listening to the pure and distilled art. The story is very intense. The young man, trapped in boredom, will construct himself a new name and become a crow.
Our little Micha
Listen
preferred
carefully.
to go to bed and think about boredom. Then he fell asleep, and in a dream he flew away like a crow for a long, long time, until the morning.
That is how it is with names. We are stuck with the names for a lifetime, and there is no way we can get rid of them. We usually get them at the beginning. They are given to us by our parents or our schoolmates, and before we realize that we have them, it is unfortunately too late. There are also protective names. These are the best. They are born out of the best in us, or as a warning to others. Some of us don't even know about them. Some of us want them, but don't dare to reveal them. They remain secret. Sometimes they are used as a password on the internet or as the pseudonym in a chat room. These names make kind of a shield around a person. I like names like that. They call me Starucha. I like to enjoy a cup of tea and butter biscuits, and every now and then I wrap myself in cocoon and create caterpillars. Dear listeners, make caterpillars. And there is already a new story for your inner child. Wake him up. Give him a biscuit. Let him listen to the story. You know how they say, without stories, there is no childhood. Without childhood, there is no ice cream, no candy, and no boogie. Our listener, Lavushka, will tell us the story of the Heavy Ranger.
Enei was 12 years old. That was the year when he had no friends. He was angry, very angry. He decided to crush the world. He went to the closet to grow up and become a giant. He began to shake from the inside. The closet also began to shake. But he did not become a giant. He became the Heavy Ranger. The Heavy Ranger had many words. With them, he wrote lyrics. That year, his mother went to Brazil. Dad, on the other hand, stayed at home and locked him in the house. "You are not going out now. You won't. No." The heavy ranger threw a post-it notes cube at his father's forehead. The heavy ranger went to his room and made an L-shaped wedge with his body to get the door stuck. Dad was banging on the door, but he couldn't get inside, so he threw the door down from the hinges. The heavy ranger and Dad got into a fight. They fought so hard that they lost all the words they had. His mother sent some words to them from Brazil. "Don't worry, be happy. All passes. Here are coconuts, palm trees, sunshine, beach." Then he was able to write the text. "You too will pass, Brazil, very soon. The waves of the ocean will erode and wash you away."
The advice of Radio Starucha. Do not be afraid. Put on your protective name and write it above your pillow. The next story about Keltship will be given to us by Tarakanka.
Žiga is an adult. He has a family. It was a beautiful day and they went on a trip climbing steep rocks. They were 3. Žiga, a woman, and a man. This man was tall and strong like a lion. We called him Vain because he was a veiled, tough man. He was special, always in a good mood for jokes, a jolly person. He loved sweet wine, just like they all did. That night before they went climbing, they loved wine even more. Because of the wine, the high rock spinned about them. In the morning, the rock stopped spinning, but they felt very sick, as if at least a tiger hanged over. Vain and the woman were climbing together, tied with a rope, but Žiga was alone. He didn't need help until there were only 2 pitches to reach the top. One pitch is 1 playground long, let's say. So there were 2 more deadly vertical children's playgrounds to the top. He became dead tired, looked up and said to himself, "This is not going to work." He shouted, "Vain, drop me the rope!" But Vain laughed like a hyena. "You're a wooserweth!" Then they were mocking each other until Vain threw him the rope. Žiga awkwardly tied it around his body, so it was hurting him everywhere. He climbed towards the top and began to tremble like a leaf. Then he fell, but the rope caught him. In that moment, he was born again. His name was born, Keltship. Why? Because with that name, you can fail and move on.
Dear listeners, we share with you the thoughts of the very best expertise on protection, our beloved listener divorcee.
Една неотдавнешна британска студия.
A recent British study found that cows that have a name produce more milk than those who don't.
Отколку оние кои немаат име. Izberete gostinskoto ime.
Choose yourself a right name, increase your abilities,
Zaštitite se.
protect yourself.
Dear listeners, you are listening to Radio Starucha on 107.5 megahertz, a radio where time does not exist. Colleague philosopher shared with us some of her thoughts that she read in the newspaper over morning coffee.
Researchers have recently found that the caterpillar of a large wax moth can destroy and digest a plastic bag very quickly. Even more successful is a group of caterpillars that can make several holes in one bag in 1 hour. Every year, the whole world produces around 80 million tons of polyethylene, which is the main material for making plastic bags. The secret of success lies in the microbes in the caterpillar's digestive tract.
Thank you, dear listener philosopher. Listen to Radio Starucha. Don't hide yourself. Connect. So, dear listeners, make caterpillars. With caterpillars, the world will be more beautiful and cleaner. Now let's listen to the story of She Robot in the interpretation of Heavy Ranger.
Anna is 12 years old, sitting in a room. This room is like hers, but also like it's not hers. She also sits as if she's not sitting. She feels like a robot. She doesn't move. She doesn't breathe. She doesn't think. Her body is the body of a robot. Anna goes inside of She Robot. She gets smaller and smaller, that in the end she's almost gone. Everyone wants something from her. The whole room is full of them. She Robot sits, does nothing, tries to move, but they don't allow her. Anna, however, does not worry. She is safely squeezed in She Robot's navel. They won't find her there.
Dear listeners, tonight with you on 107.5 megahertz is Radio Starucha, a radio that cares for the smallest and the tallest. Stay with us. Trust me. Make caterpillars. Listener Crow contributed the story of Clint's.
Tommy is already 13 years old. He is sitting on the balcony of an apartment block. Tommy smokes, drinks beer, and thinks. He puts his cigarette in a mouth, in a hole where he has a missing tooth. He looks like Cowboy Clint. I don't care about the thing, he thinks. He's sitting on the balcony and he's listening to military planes that are flying over him. He knows that they are flying to another country and that they have bombs. They are about to destroy people, he thinks, when he smokes. It bangs heavily when the plane above tears the air. That's how it ends if you're not obedient, he thinks. With bombs. He's sitting on the balcony now, and he doesn't like it at all. So he smokes and drinks beer, because he's not allowed to. He does things he shouldn't. Our Clint's.
Dear listeners, beware. A new revolutionary evolutionary theory is circulating around the world. When man will produce a sufficient amount of plastic, he will satisfy his primary evolutionary purpose and slowly pupate and transform. According to this theory, caterpillars and men are directly connected in the food chain. Man produces plastic and caterpillars feed on it. Advertisement on Radio Starucha. Produce plastic. Feed the caterpillars of the world. A little music before the next story. Our listener, She Robot, told us the story of Tarakanka.
Urshka was far away from everyone. She was in a distant, big land. She was also already big. She didn't know anyone there. In fact, no one in this big city knows anyone. Eventually, she also married to a man she didn't know. They moved into a large building called a block. And when Urshka feels lonely, she goes to the bathtub, to the bathroom. The water is brownish, the bath is rusty. Everywhere around are cobwebs, and it stinks from the toilet bowl. Beetles, which are not small, crawl on the ground. Urshka doesn't know them, but in this land they are called cockroaches. They crawl through the vent. From there also crawl the unknown words from the neighbors, along with the cigarette smoke. But at least the water is warm. She's comfortable. She closes her eyes, immerses her head in the brown water, and remembers the things she knows. She's 5 years old. She's sitting on her grandmother's couch, which she knows very well. Her grandmother lives under the mountains in her home country, which Urshka knows very well. Through the large window she watches the cows past, watches the flies flying around Grandma's living room, the religious show on television, the tapestry of Mother Mary on the mountain on the wall, smell of beef soup, baked potatoes, and nibble cookies that are on the table. She knows all this, and she's looking forward to having all day ahead of her to play.
You are listening to Radio Starucha on 107.5 MHz. Now, for a few minutes, listen to the listener who has been sailing here on the waves of Radio Starucha for years and broadcasts the legendary podcast entitled Oh Cool, Oh Cool.
Radio Starucha 107.5 megahertz, a radio you can't escape. Me neither. I'm here, still, for ages it seems. Come on people, call me, please. It's great if you call me. Just call. Anybody. Mother, please, at least you, call me, or anyone. Anybody, please, please.
Dear listeners, we already came to the last story. The story of Lavushka will be told by our Clint.
High school student Maya has a new room with a door. She drew small ears on that door. In the middle of the room there is an overturned bed frame.
Here, behind the bed frame and door, however, she is safe. How nice to have a door, she thinks. She had no door in the previous room. She only had partitions and curtains, behind which her older sister mocked her. But Maya doesn't just hide herself. She also hides her thoughts. She disguises them with a sweet laugh and makes herself diligent and kind. She eavesdrops and waits for you to fall into the trap. She calls these traps lavushkas. The traps are like this. If Maya doesn't agree with you, she repeats your words, adds questions to them, and throws them back at you. So you end up talking to yourself. But if she's mad at you, she attaches a cute ladybug on her hair ring, so you spot it and compliment her. But on the ladybug, there are small letters that are saying what she really thinks about you. I can't tell you that out loud, but I can tell it in your ear. It says on the ladybug, "This story is already dragging on too long. Let's finish it."
Finally, a letter written to you by my esteemed colleague, Sakerdon Mihajlovič. Sakerdon is a very interesting man, but sometimes he wants to be a little too smart and tries to have everything under control. But here is what he says. You are at the beginning of the last incident of your mission. So, incident 4, fate. You have exactly 45 minutes to solve the last incident. If you are successful, it will throw you out of the Zoom back into reality, wherever that is. If not, you will get a podcast on Radio Starucha for a while, which isn't so bad either. Dear listener, listen well. Your body is a small drop. It is a piece of mind with a fragile fence around it. Outside this fragile fence, however, it is the ocean, magnificent and perfect. Don't think you are just a little fenced creature. No, no. There is really no barrier between him who is perfect, like this ocean outside, and you. Why are you fencing yourself? You who are contained in him, and best of all, relax. You don't need to do anything. Turn off your clock, take off her hands, and open the fence. You listened to Radio Starucha on 107.5 MHz. Send us a caterpillar, bake biscuits, embrace your inner child. All words are redundant. I switched to music.